Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, and today we're going to be talking about the 2022 United States Senate elections based off of support for Roe v. Wade across each individual state from data collected from various pollsters that gives us a general idea of where these states actually stand on abortion. This has become an issue that has largely now been viewed as a Republican and Democrat issue, with Republicans being pro-life and Democrats being pro-choice. But truly speaking, the issue is a lot more one-sided than you actually think. You have a significant portion of America that believes that Roe v. Wade should be upheld by the United States Supreme Court. Over 1 in 4 Republicans agree with such a decision. That's because the majority of the nation is pro-choice. It shows here in many articles that the Supreme Court's potential decision to get rid of Roe v. Wade does not mirror the majority of the American public. And that has been established for quite some time now. For the past 3 decades, based off of Pew Research and other pollsters, you find that abortion largely is viewed as something that should be kept legal and legalized across the United States. I find it quite interesting that we are in a position now where a Supreme Court is making a decision right before a midterm election, and before we start talking about whether or not the Supreme Court should or should not be political. I don't think that it should be, but at the end of the day, it is. And it is a very real reality that many justices are very much engulfed and entrenched in these news cycles. They see what the impact is of their decisions. They aren't completely removed from politics as much as we would like to think. They are still voters. They are still American citizens, and they absolutely participate in the American political process and directly contribute to it. So to act as if that we are seeing this as something that they are not at all considering the midterm implications or the long-term implications of their decision is to be naive about the situation. These are Republican justices. If they were not justices, they would be Republican politicians. We know exactly who the composition of the Supreme Court is. It's 3 Democrats and 6 Republicans. That's why you find 6 Republicans nominated by 6 Republican presidential nominations. It's very interesting, to say the least. But the point is that what you are finding is that the Supreme Court is making a decision right before a midterm election where we have some extremely contentious Senate races. And of course, this is a decision that will largely outdate, if it is to follow through in June, largely outdate the midterm elections. It won't really matter what the midterm elections are 10 years down the line, with Roe v. Wade being overturned and a very unlikely possibility of overturning such a declaration 10 years prior. But overall, I do want to say that I think there are going to be some very big implications, which is why I want to talk about the state-by-state numbers when it comes down to Roe v. Wade. So there's a lot of sites that have actually reported on Roe v. Wade numbers in individual states and nationwide numbers in terms of laws in comparison to where the public actually stands. So what we're going to be using today is a New York Times map. They have collected this data from the Public Religion Research Institute, Pew Research, and I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, Guttmacher Institute. I'm sorry if I'm completely botching that name. But what you find here is that there is a significant portion of the nation that supports abortion access, that supports legal abortion across the United States, that believes that Roe v. Wade should not be overturned. And if you take a look at the map on the right, you find that many states have abortion bans that are designed to be activated as soon as Roe v. Wade is overturned. We call them trigger laws. They essentially mean that, as soon as Roe v. Wade is overturned, it pulls the trigger, and consequently, abortion is declared illegal across an entire state. States such as Florida, Texas, Oklahoma have begun passing restrictive laws on abortion, making it near impossible, laws that were meant to go to the Supreme Court, to be upheld, or at least to have certain provisions of it upheld, to change the precedent, to change Roe v. Wade, and that's exactly what's happening across the nation. However, of course, like I mentioned previously, the nation isn't exactly on this side. Sorry if I sound a little bit different. My throat is a little bit scratchy right now, so I might sound a little bit off, just simply because I am in allergy season, and I think I might be a little bit sick, but not entirely. It's not COVID-19, I promise you that. But let's go ahead and take a look at every single state that is up for re-election, every single senator that is up for re-election, and the open seats, and see exactly where abortion access leads us when it comes down to margins, when it comes down to popular opinion, because the results might shock you. It might actually show you exactly why there's been this narrative that has been sort of talked about for quite some time now, that if abortion access is limited, if Roe v. Wade is limited, that it could really shake up the midterms. It could reshape what we see for November. No longer is the issue immigration, the issue is abortion. No longer is the issue inflation, the issue is abortion. And while many things can be taken into consideration, and no, I don't think this will be the only thing that voters care about in November, it will certainly be up there. Whereas otherwise, it probably wouldn't even be in the top 10. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with some of the more conservative, more pro-life states and start to move forward towards the more pro-choice states to see exactly where you're seeing this disconnect and divide across the nation and what it means for the politicians running in these states. So let's go ahead and get started. The first state that we are going to characterize is the state that is most against legalization of abortion, and that is the state of Louisiana. You're talking about a 23-point difference here between those who support it and those who do not, and that's not really shocking. Louisiana is quite a Republican state, and it makes sense that you would see such pushback on legalized abortion. Arkansas joins next at -19. Keep in mind, these numbers aren't going to be as polarized or as large as margins for Trump in 2016 or Trump in 2020, largely because 1/4 Republicans believe that abortion should be legal, that Roe v. Wade should be upheld. 71% of independents take the same view, and 88% of Democrats. So what you're finding is that the overwhelming majority of the nation, like we said, 2/3 of the people say that the Supreme Court should uphold the numbers, should uphold the decision from 73. So keep that all in mind when you look at some of these numbers. You might be surprised to see some more Republican states not exactly voting the way you might otherwise think. Moving over to the next state, which is not on this map, the state of Alabama, we have a -15 margin here. Now, surprisingly enough, Alabama does not have a trigger ban. It is likely to pass for obvious reason if Roe v. Wade is to be overturned, but according to the New York Times, they do not have a trigger ban at this point in time. The next state to be characterized is Kentucky at -12, which I would actually argue is going to be a likely state. We're going to use my standard metrics for margins here. You're talking about a 12-point quote-unquote victory for the GOP over the Democrats in this case, which is quite interesting. Utah is -10. I'm not too surprised about that. Idaho is -6. And now we're actually heading into lean territory. Quite shocking to say the least, but I do think that, again, look at this from the understanding that the overwhelming majority of independents and Democrats support this decision, and about 1/4 of all Republicans, with just about over half not supporting Roe v. Wade, with a significant amount still considering and still making a decision for themselves. North Dakota is a lean Republican state, as is South Dakota. Surprisingly enough, Texas is, but that's not on this map, so we're not going to characterize it. But it is something that I found quite interesting, just knowing that Texas has gotten closer in recent elections. South Carolina is a lean Republican state under this characterization. Realistically, all of these states are going red. No real consideration here that Republicans might actually be losing these states. I do think that what you are finding is that in terms of Roe v. Wade, in terms of abortion access, sure, some of the states might look more liberal, but I promise you, once they get to the polls, do not let this mislead you. You are going to find 30-point victories for the GOP. You are going to find 20, 25-point victories for the GOP. But this does show that on this issue individually, it might turn some tides in some swing states that might otherwise be viewed as potentially narrow Republican victories. If it's swaying voters even slightly in Utah or Idaho or Oklahoma, it does tell you a bit about where we should expect the numbers to be in a closer race, such as Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Nevada, that otherwise might have been rightward trending, that have now sort of reverted back by maybe just 1, 2, 3, 4 percentage points. But in a swing state, that is absolutely significant, and it truly could determine the balance of power, considering that right now it is riding on 4 states that have tilt characterizations. Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and Pennsylvania will be quite interesting as you move further and further. So by the end of this map, I'm actually going to show you some of the states that I do believe are going to be more conservative, because what you are going to find is that the numbers here are not adding up at all to overall electability. But of course, I'm going to go ahead and continue and proceed through this map. So we have Indiana at -2 in terms of mostly illegal versus mostly legal, or actually just more so mostly in general. As a general sense, not absolutely illegal. That's the way that the poll is actually being thrown around here. You can find the actual numbers on the New York Times. You have Nebraska, which is also -2. It's not on this map. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I'm cross-referencing here. You have Missouri, which is about a tie at this point. I would say tilt Republican for obvious reason. Moving beyond that, we're now into Democrat territory, which you're looking at this map and you're saying, how does that even happen? Even Oklahoma, tilt Democratic territory? Quite interesting to say the least. This could be an individual wrong poll, but these are general numbers that have been taken from multiple institutes, and I do want to say that I do put some type of trust into these numbers. So Kansas is a lean Democratic state. It's +1. Georgia is +2. could be slightly swaying. North Carolina is +5. We're going to characterize that as lean. Oklahoma is +5. Again, not a prediction. I know someone's going to go onto Twitter and screenshot this map and say, look at the prediction here from Let's Talk Elections, which obviously is entirely misleading, but I know it's going to happen. Just wanted to clarify that in case you're skipping ahead to this video, part of the video, or you just want to understand exactly why these states are characterized the way they are. Oklahoma moving over there. Iowa, a likely Democratic state. Ohio, +10 in terms of supporting abortion access. New Mexico, not on the map. Montana, also not on the map. It's quite surprising in Montana, +10. Virginia is +11, not on the map either. Pennsylvania is, however, +13. Arizona, +13. Minnesota, not on the map. Illinois, that is a state with +14, so we're starting to head into safe territory, +15 actually, so I will characterize that as safe. Moving over and over, we have the next state being Florida, which is +18 statewide. Quite shocking, considering that this state just recently passed a law that Ron DeSantis signed into law that restricts abortion access to 15 weeks or less. California, obviously a safe state. Colorado, a safe state. These make sense. No real reason to really jump into them. Some exceptions, though. Alaska, +25 would be a big mistake. At least it seems as if the Republicans were to overturn Roe v. Wade, considering that this is such an overwhelmingly large lead for abortion activists in the state of Alaska. Washington, +26. Oregon, +27. Let's go ahead and move over to the East Coast. New York, +31. Maryland, +31. No real shockers there at all. What do you have? Connecticut, +36. New Hampshire, +35. A huge swing state. Not the right decision for the GOP in that state. Vermont being the most liberal one, +46 across the state. I think we actually missed the state of Wisconsin, which was +13. I should have characterized that previously. And the state of Nevada, which interestingly enough is +32. So by the final map, and also Hawaii, which is +37, one of the, again, most liberal states on this map. So I'm showing you this map not because I believe this will be the final result. I'm not showing you this map because I think Democrats are going to suddenly win Oklahoma because of this decision. What I want to show you is that the general consensus on Roe versus Wade, the general consensus on whether or not abortion should be mostly legal or mostly illegal, is very much lopsided in one direction, in one party's favor. I've made this point countless times now. The Republican Party simply cannot win the fight on abortion because 2/3 of the nation believes that Roe v. Wade should be upheld. There are many things the GOP is beating the Democratic Party at right now, in terms of COVID management, in terms of inflation, in terms of immigration. Really anything else you look at, the Republicans are ahead because Joe Biden is unpopular. But the only issue the GOP I could never imagine swaying the public on is abortion access. Because while they have been really hammering in this pro-life point, this anti-Roe v. Wade point for 49 years since the passage or since the declaration from the United States Supreme Court, it ultimately doesn't mean as much as they actually think. Looking at this map, looking at this majority for the Democratic Party of 60-40 isn't realistic. But it does show you there is a significant portion of the nation, blue and red states, that back Roe v. Wade, that back abortion access. And if it was to be limited, it will be a very bad look for the GOP, especially in all of these solid blue states. If you were to take all of these solid blue states, the Democrats would maintain their electoral majority in the United States Senate. You add in the likely states, they've gained 5 seats. You add in the lean seats, they've gained another 5. It would be the largest largest Senate majority for Democrats since 2009. And before then, you're talking decades prior. Overall, the Democratic Party is in a position where this could benefit them. And of course, there does need to be that conversation about half of the nation of women losing their access to an abortion, losing their access to something that otherwise would have been accessible prior to this decision. But the political implications of this are very, very real. And it could sway voters to vote against the GOP. While again, Democrats are not going to win in Oklahoma because of this decision, or in Kansas because of this decision, well, maybe on the governor level, what you are going to find is that for states where it really matters, this very large advantage for Democrats in terms of a pro-choice versus pro-life debate could nudge the needle slightly. In Arizona, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Nevada, in North Carolina, in New Hampshire, in states where the GOP is definitely trying to win and might be the favorites at least prior to the leak, that are going to now see themselves in a much more jeopardized position, in a much more competitive position because even if it is just a shift of 2 to 3 points, that could keep the Democrats in the majority because of how close our Senate races are right now, which is what ultimately I wanted you to take away from this map, and also take away from the fact that the majority of the nation is on one side and the GOP will not win this fight, and it will only hinder them. But of course, as the technically apolitical force that the Supreme Court is, it quote-unquote doesn't really matter to them. But I can guarantee you it absolutely will the day after the November election. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.